Well, when it comes to the well-being of children in the world's wealthiest nations, Canada ranks near the bottom. UNICEF ranked Canada 26 out of 35 affluent countries. The study looked at children whose family income was in the lowest 10% and those in the middle class. And it focused on four key areas: income, health, education, and life satisfaction. A high proportion of Canadian children reported having low life satisfaction. Denmark came out on the top in the study by UNICEF. For more on this, I'm joined by David Morley. He's President and CEO of UNICEF Canada. David, I think a lot of people would be surprised by this report. To what is it attributed that Canada ranks so low?
Well, I think a lot of people will be surprised. The trouble is, one of the troubles is that in Canada we assume that because we're in the top 10 wealthiest countries in the world, that wealth will translate into a better life experience for children, and it's just not good enough. And so we realize, I think what this report shows is that we have to really take steps to improve income inequality and make sure that some of the social services that are targeted towards the poor families really reach those children in need. You know, we think in Canada that we're an equal society, and we're pretty good, but clearly there are children being left behind.
Well, and this is a very timely report in light of what we've seen come out of Attawapiskat, in light of the news today that Métis and non-status natives will be given Indian status. How much of this report is, and I don't want to use skewed necessarily, but how much of this report reflects our issues with our Aboriginal communities?
I think there are two issues that are from inside this report. One is that clearly Indigenous and Aboriginal children are overrepresented in some of the difficult areas of health and education and life satisfaction. But it goes beyond that. We can tell when we look at the statistics that it's not just Indigenous children, it's the poorest children in Canada, whoever they may be, who are being left behind. And I think it does mean also that as we try to address this issue, and you mentioned Attawapiskat, we also need to work with the community leaders of First Nations and Indigenous communities. There's a lot of strength in those communities. There's strength of their leaders and of their young leaders and their old leaders that we can build on to work together to be able to make things better for them.
You know, it is a fascinating report in that it shines a light on poverty in Canada. But again, I think many Canadians would be surprised to learn that Canada falls so far down the list. What do other nations do that are above us on that list that Canada's not doing?
They do, the top of the nations, they do a better job of income redistribution. So things like when the Canada Family Tax benefit starts this summer, that may start to make a difference. They do a better job of curbing, from the health side, of curbing the marketing of soft drinks and sugary foods, because ultimately that leads to poorer health. They do, many of them, a better job of listening to their young people and children than we do. And they have, in their governments, they have children's commissioners. And that's something we think would help us here in Canada. If we had a national children's commissioner listening to children, the impact of government policies on children all the time, then we wouldn't be surprised when every couple of years we at UNICEF have to shine a light on this problem.
David Morley, President